Greetings, traveller. Come in and take a seat by the fire. Today we will be continuing to tell a tale together. A tale of revelation and resolution. A tale of the final hours. Today, traveller, you die, and we begin in earnest. The Siege of the Elderkeep, Part 4. The door's hinges are straining, their metal warping visibly under the continued beating. Something huge is on the other side, hammering at the heavy oak and metal fittings incessantly. It is only a matter of time. 3 days ago, you were carried through the Elderkeep's front gate, your body rendered inert by strain and exhaustion. You spent your last strength keeping your oldest friend out of the orc's reach. Grandin Calic has regained consciousness since then, stirring only briefly yesterday to take water and a little gruel. Some colour has returned to his cheeks, but the wound is dire. He will struggle to hold a weapon when the time comes. There is still a decent supply of food within the keep. The Lord and his advisors had anticipated the greatest threat from the orcs being starvation. What chance had they, after all, to take the outer wall, let alone breach the Elderkeep itself? You look around, taking in the hollow, downcast eyes of the soldiers and civilians crammed into the great hall. No one here is under any illusion as to what happens next. The portcullis barely made it a day. Of the sizable garrison mustered in the city when news of the horde first reached the world of men, barely a handful have made it this far. Exactly how the orcs had swept aside the walls so easily remains mostly a mystery. The spinsters and young girls whisper to each other about dark magics, and the retired soldiers, drummed back for one last tour of duty, mutter about some new siege mechanism they've borrowed from the forges of hell itself. Few of those who saw the actual assault have lived long enough to describe it, and your own descriptions have been brief and somewhat terse. The wound in Grandin's chest has robbed you of what little sense of camaraderie you had with the rest of the defenders, even destined as you are to die by their side. Yesterday, you finally gave up on any hope of slipping away. No secret passage, no unwatched sallyport, no hope. How long do you think we've got? The man who settles down on the floor next to you was clean-shaven on the day the walls broke. A healthy layer of coarse hair now coats his jowls like black rust. Once a lieutenant guard for the keep in times of peace, now he is one of the last survivors with any measure of authority, outside of the keep's liege lord, who remains locked in his chamber. The official title for the Lord of Elderkeep is the Iron Warden. Quite the custodian of his imperial title, that one. Certainly won't be more than an hour, so far as I can tell. 2 at most. He casts you a discerning look. When the time comes, I trust you'll take up arms with us. One last stand. The man seems earnest enough, as though you actually have a choice. You know, Calic was a mistake. We'd never shoot one of our own intentionally. One of our own. Your lips curl into a sardonic grimace. Before the battle began in earnest, recruits from distant Varn and places like it were treated as yokels and peasant soldiers by the standing garrison troops of the keep. They'd seen their storied military traditions as proof enough that they had no need of enthusiastic amateurs. But now you're all one big happy family, doomed to die here together. It might be time to fetch the warden down from his chambers. The man seems to have mistaken your smile for warmth. He seems a good man, and dedicated to his duty. He'll be a loss for the Empire. When the time comes, the warden should be here. It's his keep, after all. You nod, seeing the sense in another sword or two. If you're to take as many of the beasts with you as you can, you'll need every able body you can find. And so you rise, turning your back on the buckling door and walking towards the stairwell at the far end of the room. You pass row upon row of fellow survivors without a word, but your movement seems to nudge them from their reverie. Weapons are picked up from the flagstones. Slack jaws tighten into grim expressions of determination. They know what is coming. You reach the stairs, pausing briefly before heading upwards. There is a mezzanine walkway that runs around the upper portion of the hall, where an ad hoc infirmary has been thrown together for the few surviving wounded. You follow the winding stairs up to that level, and step out onto the wooden boards. You pass by two young women, likely housemaids by the looks of them, who are talking quietly over bows they likely barely know how to use. You ignore them, walking along the balcony's length to where Grandin is propped against the wall. The single remaining orderly in the keep is bent over him, her thick woolen habit covered in dull stains where blood has been barely washed away. She is changing a dressing which has been bound around Grandin's chest wound. She turns at the sound of your boots on the wooden platform and manages a weary smile. Sister Helga. She was a novice before the siege, before her mentor had died, trying to drag a wounded knight off the wall. Large rocks, it seems, do not respect rank or medical prowess. "Thank you, sister," Grandin croaks. His face has gained new lines. Pain will do that to you. "The maiden protect you." "You must rest, Master Calic," she responds, her voice carrying authority born of circumstance. He nods in response, although you know she is directing the words at you as much as he. As she bustles away, you set yourself down next to your childhood friend and hold out a nearly empty wineskin you've been holding back since rations were distributed this morning. Grandin takes it without a word and swigs the near vinegar lightly. You consider cracking a joke or saying something reassuring, but after a moment you opt to simply speak the truth. You tell Grandin of the state of the door, that you've been sent to fetch the warden, that today is likely your last day breathing. He listens in silence, and when you are done, he takes another light swig before responding. "The warden, huh? I've always wanted to meet him in person. They say he's quite the war hero." He passes the wineskin back to you. Perhaps I'll come along. Stop you from saying anything to embarrass yourself." "Now don't look at me like that. You're worse than Helga. I'm wounded, I'm not an invalid. Besides, I could do with a chance to stretch my legs." Grandin makes to rise and you insist on helping him to his feet at least. Helga shoots you an accusatory look from further down the balcony, but Grandin reassures her as you pass that he's not going far.
And I'll be back in just a moment. I've just taken a little exercise, sister.
See that you don't go far. I can't treat you if you faint on the stairs. Grandin shoots her his most reassuring smile, and you feel an odd sense of satisfaction watching him coddle someone other than you. With Grandin leaning heavily on your arm, you move back towards the stairs and up to the next floor. The warden's chambers are down a short corridor leading away from the hall towards the rear of the keep. It is not a long walk, and you pass it with Grandin in companionable silence. Reaching the door, you pause, considering how best to enter. Even now, your ingrained training tells you there is some kind of propriety in entering a noble's chambers, but Grandin is restricted by no such foibles. Even as you pause in indecision, he reaches forwards and raps loudly on the wood before pushing it open in one fluid motion.
My lord, the enemy is near breaking through. The time has...
Grandin stops dead.
You're kidding.
The room is still, silent, empty. In other words,
the bastard's run off.
Grandin's words seem to sum it up well enough. You lose a tiny vestige of hope you didn't realize you still had. The hope that maybe the infamous warden might yet turn this around. Perhaps the mighty warrior lord of the Elderkeep might have some plan, some magnificent miracle to pull victory from the jaws of defeat. Not so, it seems. Grandin walks unsteadily into the room, leaning on a table worth more than his mother's house in Varn, and casting a forlorn look around the ransacked finery. Beyond the tapestry flapping languidly against the far wall, the room may as well be frozen in time. A plate sits on that table, several pieces of fruit mouldering slightly. A large trunk at the foot of a deep plush bed in the corner is open. Several pieces of fine clothing strewn across the mattress. A chest of drawers stands ransacked on the other side of the room, and several empty hooks on the wall show where weapons and armour once hung in dusty magnificence. In short, all the hallmarks of a hasty and long past retreat. You walk in behind him, mind still reeling. As the initial shock begins to dull, a thin light shines through thoughts of doom. Grandin, it seems, is having a similar moment of realization.
Hang on. How the hell did he get away?
You scan the room, trying to keep control of a treacherous whisper in your mind, muttering hope once more. The warden is gone, as is his personal staff and much of his portable wealth. Such a group would have been noted leaving the keep, even during a battle. The fruit hasn't been out so long that the room was empty when the city was encircled. That means there's another way out. Something is off, though. Putting your finger on it is a struggle, tired and underfed as you are. There is no open window, besides which a lord's retinue abseiling down the walls mid-siege would have made too tempting a target for the orcs. There is no open window, and yet the tapestry on the far wall of the room continues to shift sluggishly in an unseen wind. Almost like... You step forwards, hands shaking slightly, and take a hold of the heavy cloth. It's a hunting scene, depicting a nobleman and 3 dogs tearing a fox apart as though they're achieving some great victory. But you barely register the fine craftsmanship as you pull it aside. It is heavier than you expected, but your suspicion proves correct as it compresses along the rail bolted into the wall, revealing a small, unassuming door. It seems, in his haste, the warden has left it ajar, and a cool breeze is pulsing irregularly through the gap, just strong enough to shift the weighty fabric. You hear Grandin gasp behind you.
Is that what I think it is?
You nod, barely believing it yourself, and press a palm against the door. It swings easily at the pressure. An escape tunnel, dark and narrow. Your hands are still shaking as you grab a small oil lamp from the table by the bed. It seems well fueled, and you strike flint to light it. After a moment's hesitation, you gesture for Grandin to follow and step into the cool shadows beyond, finding yourself on a narrow stairway that delves sharply downwards. You briefly consider heading back to let the lieutenant know, but with the width and angle of the stairs, a mad rush would be extremely dangerous. Better to know what is at the end of the corridor first. Your footsteps echo slightly as you make your way down, estimating your depth as you descend. The keep sits on a sharp rise, so you anticipate the exit being a little below the hall. But just as you approach that height, the corridor turns sharply, pointing back towards the keep. Grandin is breathing heavily behind you, clearly winded by the downward climb. But that thin string of hope drives you both onwards. Ahead, another door blocks the next section of tunnel. By your estimation, you're back under the keep proper now. You reach the door and pause, letting Grandin catch up and catch his breath.
You're going to have to fetch the others on your own,
he wheezes, face red.
I'm not sure I can make that climb.
He's clearly banking on there being an exit, but rather than debate it, you simply nod, and then turn to the door and push. For a horrifying moment it doesn't move, and you have a vision of the warden locking his escape behind him. Then Grandin points out the latch midway up the timber door, and you breathe a sigh of relief before lifting it and pushing again. It isn't a tunnel. That much is clear as light streams through the doorway. It isn't an exit either. You must be deep into the rock here, and what appears before you is far from anything you might have expected. A huge circular room towers before you, built with the same impossibly close-knit stonework as the keep above. Columns spaced around the room support sconces of finely wrought metal, each of which holds a glowing blue crystal, 5 or 6 meters in the air. Between the columns stand huge, well-made shelves, overladen with scrolls and leather-bound tomes, while around the outer wall a series of indents house colossal, foreboding statues, depicting figures in long, flowing robes. A library? No ordinary library either. A massive and truly ancient repository of knowledge. Grandin has made his way over to one of the shelves, plucking a book at random and cracking the aged leather binding audibly as he opens it. Your attention is fixed on the nearest statue, your mind struggling to comprehend it, as he mutters behind you.
This isn't a script I recognize,
he says in a voice subconsciously hushed in reverence for the sheer age and size of the room around you.
I'm no scholar,
but I learned my letters. This ain't anything I've seen before. Your eyes are fixed on the face of the nearest statue. Its features are finely wrought and fair in expression, but maybe some kind of old Karsian script, or maybe it's Velenite. You can barely hear Grandin over the blood pounding in your ears. This statue, that face, it's Orc. You must have said the word aloud, because you hear Grandin curse softly behind you, his gaze finally joining yours. What? Why would someone make statues of orcs down here? He looks back down at the book in his hands. Was someone studying them, or... You look to the next statue and see the same features. Tusked, with a slightly porcine nose. Another orc, this time holding aloft a pair of scales. You look to the next, another orc, but bearing a book and quill. The next is hefting some kind of complex device, not dissimilar to a naval sextant. In the flickering light of the oil lamp, coupled with the soft blue glow of the crystals, their features almost seem to shift. Empty stone eyes watching you as you look at each in turn. Orcs, every one of them, each depicted in some scholarly pursuit or with hands raised in elegant gestures. Each simultaneously familiar and completely distinct from the savage creatures hammering at the door of the keep far above. None of the statues wield weapons or bear armor. None have a face twisted in the rage you've come to expect from such faces. They seem almost civilized.
Who's there?
The voice makes you start, and your hand falls to the blade on your belt as you scan the room. In the far corner, nearly hidden in shadow, a hunched figure in a dirty brown robe sits, almost obscured behind stacks of books and scrolls. You step forwards, raising the oil lamp in one hand to cast its guttering light further. The orange glow flickers across the wrinkled features of an old man who has turned milky white eyes in your direction.
You should know. This area is off limits, by order of the warden.
Grandin steps past you, placing a restraining hand on your shoulder. It's a magnificent place, he says, moving closer to the blind old man as he speaks.
Isn't it? A repository of knowledge from the ages of myth.
His expression loses some of its caution. He's clearly eager to have someone to talk to.
Can you believe the first men left such a place intact? I only wish I had my sight to witness it properly.
You glance once more at the massive, tusk-faced statues lining the walls. First men?
The warden was kind enough to assign me to its keeping, despite my affliction.
You've not seen the statues?
Alas, no, though they have been described to me. I gather they are quite striking.
Yeah, their tusks certainly make an impression.
Tusks?
The old man's face creases in confusion, then he seems to move on from the thought.
When my vision fled, I was still confined to the warden's personal library in the keep. I would have so loved to have a more active hand in translating all these writings, but our Lord is a merciful man. He kept me on, despite my infirmity, and had me placed down here to watch over this incredible place, in a manner of speaking.
A rueful smile plays across the man's wrinkled features.
He visits on occasion. Are you here looking for him?
We're in his employ, yes. Do you know where he might be? The man raises a gnarled finger and points to a door set into the wall behind him.
I believe he went through there. An old water channel, as far as we can tell. I believe it leads out beyond the walls.
The librarian pauses.
He sometimes heads through this way to take a ride.
An escape route. You were right after all. You should leave the same way. Grandon's concern is clear in his voice. The enemy are near breaching the keep. The old man simply smiles. It seems this does not come as a surprise.
And what exactly would I do beyond this room, other than slow my lord down and perhaps feed the wolves? No, young man. I have been given this room as my duty, and I shall attend to it.
He settles into the cushioned chair in which he is ensconced and knits his fingers across his stomach.
I will not attempt to keep you here, though. It would be a crime for a younger man than me to be entombed here.
Grandon looks like he'll attempt to convince the old librarian, but a muted boom from above stops him in his tracks.
The door,
he mutters. You respond with a tense nod, then thank the librarian and hurry towards the door he indicated. It opens easily, and beyond, a much wider tunnel stretches out into the dark. There are some mouldering crates, a few rough chairs, and a small table. It seems the warden posted guards even here, but there is no one to be seen now. Indeed, nothing living remains in the tunnel, with the exception of a bony-looking horse fastened to the wall. It's overloaded with chests, trunks, and bags, and with a cursory glance you can see that each is filled with silverware and coin. A veritable fortune for a commoner such as you, but circumstance makes a mockery of desire. The weight is too much for the old mare, and you make short work of the fastenings, divesting the horse of its burden and turning to wave Grandon over. His breathing is more shallow now, and he barely manages to speak as you help him onto the animal.
We need to go and fetch the others,
he manages to wheeze as you pass him the reins and the mare tosses her head indignantly.
We can't just leave them.
The horse doesn't look like it will manage much more than a canter, and you're painfully aware of the tunnel door above, still wide open and exposed. If the orcs have breached the keep, they'll be after you both long before you can make a clean getaway. And so, you do what any true friend would do. You lie. With words of reassurance that you will fetch the others, you tell Grandon he should get away. There is a tavern you both know of, near the capital. You'll meet him there, along with anyone else you can get out. He should start riding. You'll be right behind him. Better to leave scattered than in one large group. Better to make sure word reaches the capital of what happened here. Grandon's face is pale, but he still attempts to put up some resistance. Slouched over the horse's neck as he is, all he can do is maintain eye contact.
You give me your word that you'll get out.
You consider continuing the lie, but there are some things even you won't do, and your word to your childhood friend is a bridge too far. So you say nothing. He can barely control the horse when you slap her soundly on the rump, causing her to rear and then begin trotting down the tunnel. You do not watch him go. You don't have the time. As your oldest friend is carried away from the battle, you turn and walk away. You return to the library, closing the door behind you as you do so. The sergeant's gravelly voice rises unbidden to your mind.
You always send 2 runners, lad.
Your friend is gone?
The librarian is exactly where you left him, and you nod before feeling foolish for doing so. There is little enough time for words, so you rush across the room and re-enter the tunnel. The sound of ringing steel is echoing down from above now, and you nearly trip as you begin rushing up the stairs, taking 2 at a time as you draw the borrowed short sword from your belt. You round the corner, continuing upwards towards the shaft of light that cuts in from the Lord's chambers. In a few moments more you burst from the tunnel, hurriedly closing and latching the door behind you and pulling the tapestry back into place. You step back and check the disguise, then turn to see the lieutenant in the doorway, looking at you with an expression of confusion.
The Lord,
His face falls.
he's gone.
Despite your reservations, you begin to tell him about the tunnel, but he stops you with a raised hand.
Grandin?
You nod.
Aye. At least someone will carry our story,
He states flatly, his eyes saying far more than his words. He's already badly hurt, his left arm hanging limp at his side. You feel a pang of guilt at having treated him so harshly over the past few days, but the thoughts are pushed aside as you hear Sister Helga scream from the next room. The lieutenant whirls and rushes into the corridor, and you move to follow. You do not make it far. Out in the corridor, he has already been swamped by orcs. The great hall must be lost. Your thoughts turn to the young infirmarian, likely thrown from the balcony or run through protecting her patients. The girls with bows won't have lasted long. The greybeards with their second-hand spears will have been swept aside along with their makeshift barricades. What are you even fighting for anymore? The lieutenant is a superb swordsman, but numbers and the confined space make a mockery of his expertise. You back into the Lord's chamber once more as he is slammed into a wall by one of the advancing orcs. You should be panicking, but you feel your breath become even and you tighten your grip on the leather binding of your sword handle. Even as you watch the club-footed troll from beneath the wall push the roaring orcs aside and advance down the corridor, shoulders brushing the stonework, you are filled with an odd sense of calm. The adrenaline is roaring in your ears, but it is not fear now. There will be no winning, no survival. But at the very least, every moment you live is a moment longer for Grandin to make good his escape. 2 runners, so one makes it through, no matter the cost. The troll is holding a weapon, dragging its blade across the flagstones as it advances towards the Lord's chamber. A familiar poleaxe, finely crafted and glittering. Stolen, just as the city has been. Your calm begins to bubble into rage. The troll stoops, beginning to force its way through the doorway, and you take your opportunity. With a ragged yell, you throw yourself forwards, blade tip piercing the troll's hide just above the collarbone. It roars, hot breath washing over your face as you twist and wrench the blade, attempting to maximize the damage you inflict. Even so, the troll moves like a solid wall, pushing through the door and driving you back by sheer mass. Dark blood coats your forearms now, but the creature swats you away, a powerful uppercut from its free hand, sending you careening into the far wall. Your breath is knocked from you by the impact, and you wheeze, trying to ignore the metallic tang of blood in your mouth. The troll is past the door now, scanning the room with black eyes that evoke memories of the sharks that haunt Van's outer port on busy shipping days. You see the beast sniff, and then turn its head, glacial, towards the tapestry. No matter the cost. Summoning what little you have left, you push yourself off the wall and run, full tilt at the troll, swinging wildly. Blade meets hide and you scythe a few chunks from the creature in rapid succession. It bellows again, bringing its free hand round to sweep you away. You duck, throwing yourself out of its reach, landing awkwardly. No time to hesitate. You drive yourself to your feet again. No matter the cost. The troll catches you, its massive hand clamping onto your torso as you attempt another attack. No matter. You are slammed into the wall, chest collapsing under the impact, breathing turned paper thin. The cost. The troll roars into your face, the noise becoming your whole world for a moment as it buffets your senses. You've done all you can. And with a final monumental effort, you glare up at your enemy and roar back. The poleaxe rises and falls only once. Your eyes flicker open and you gasp, shock rippling through your system. You're alive? You look around, thoughts rearranging and reformatting as you take in the fire that crackles merrily in the hearth. The clay tankard that sits on the small table beside you, nearly empty. The strange figure who sits opposite you, watching from the shadows of a deep hood. You breathe a sigh of relief. Just a story. You are back in the tavern known as the Weaver's Rest, it seems. More accurately, you never left. As you look at the eponymous Weaver, you take a moment to steady your hands, still tremoring slightly. You had almost felt the descending blade as it scythed into you, and yet here you are, exactly as you were before the story began. Well, not exactly. That is just one tale, traveller. The Weaver's voice, now familiar, interrupts your thoughts. But this is only the ending of the beginning. There are many more to tell. Not all will end so abruptly. You drain the remaining liquid in your tankard, nerves steadying slightly. It had felt so real, and you cannot help but ask after Grandon's fate. Grandon Callick lives. He has his part yet to play. But next, let us look at the world through a slightly different perspective. The Weaver has turned their hood back towards the flickering fireplace, features still hidden from you. You let your eyes wander slightly, and then cannot help pausing as they settle on a poleaxe, beautifully wrought and glittering, that hangs above the hearth. The Weaver continues to speak, their words knitting in the air around you, though they seem to speak to someone else entirely now. Thank you for listening to this, the final part of our first tale together, and for taking the time to listen to these short stories. I truly hope you have enjoyed our work together, and if so, that you will consider leaving a comment to let me know and perhaps make a request for the subject of future tales. Tell me what you thought, how you felt, and what you want to see next. Now that we have reached the functional end of our first tale, I feel this is the best time to ask that you consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like should you wish to see more in the future. This is not so much for the algorithm as it is for me. Seeing your comments and interactions is truly the highlight of my day. Regardless, I do hope you will join me next week, when we will be exploring the world that contains the Elderkeep in a little more detail. But until then, traveller, farewell and safe travels.